There is no past and there is no future. There is just now.
I'm tired of being told what I ought to believe. I'm tired of being told how I ought to see, how I ought to behave, how I ought to feel. Let me find out for myself who I really am. When a person reaches a certain point in life when he says, now look here, I've had enough of all this. I'm simply tired of making life not in the least bit worth living by going through the horrors as to what might happen, of going through all this in the name of efficiency and membership in the community. Let me for a while get away from it all and find out what the score is for myself.
Only suckers put hope in the future. So when we say to ourselves, you must go on, the reason is, you see, that we are not living in the eternal now, where reality is. We are always thinking that the satisfaction of life will be coming later. Don't kid yourself. The only place to begin is now, because here's where we are. So why put it off? A lot of people say, well, I'm not ready. What do you mean you're not ready? What do you have to be ready? You look into yourself honestly. You find that inside you're actually a quaking mess of sensitivity. So that this desire to be the great mystic is nothing more than a symptom of your quaking mess. It's self-defense, running away from the quaking mess, escaping. There's nothing you can actually do to transform your own nature into unattached selflessness, because you have a selfish reason for wanting to do it. Let's suppose there's nothing we can do to change ourselves. Psychotherapy, religion, all this is absolutely in vain. There's nothing you can do about it. By trying, as I said, to bite your own teeth. What does it mean that you can't do anything about it? Singing loud and clear. The reason you can't do anything about it is that you don't exist. That is, as an ego, as a soul, a separate will, just isn't there. When I say you, as you conceive yourself to be, that is your ego, your image of yourself, isn't there. It doesn't exist. It's an abstraction. This illusion of the persecuted ego who is pushed around by fate, it has altogether disappeared. And so, likewise, the illusion of the ego who pushes fate around has also disappeared. There's a happening. By dying to yourself, by having become completely incompetent and found that you don't exist, you're reborn.
See, our problem is we don't really know how to stop. We've got something started and we see it's going in a wrong direction. And I think the difficulty is when the wrong man uses the right means work in the wrong way. In other words, there's something wrong with the way we think. And while that is there, everything we do will be a mess. Now, what is it that's wrong? Now, as far as I can see, the basic mistake is that we've invented this wonderful system of language and calculation, and that it is at once too simple to deal with the complexity of the world, and also we are liable to confuse that system of symbols with the world itself, just as we confuse, say, money with wealth. A lot of people are in business to make money instead of wealth. When they make the money, they don't know what to do with it. The civilized man tends to be in a state of chronic worry and fear and anxiety because he's always confronted not with the simple actuality of what is happening before him, but with the innumerable possibilities of what might happen. And since, because of this, his emotional existence tends to be in a chronic state of anxiety and tension, he loses increasingly the ability to relate to the concrete world as it manifests itself to him. We are all amazingly involved in the process of being human and playing our game and taking our side. And therefore our victories and defeats, our sicknesses and our healths, are things we get mighty partisan about. And therefore we cannot see that human behavior is just like everything else. It never makes a mistake. Only its never making a mistake must include the feeling that mistakes can be made. All people are manifestations. There are not any mistakes in the world. When you look at patterns on the foam of the breaking waves on the seashore, and you look at the outlines of mountains, the grain in wood, and the markings on marble, you notice that it never makes an aesthetic mistake. Never. Life happens, changes go on too rapidly for that. Because you see, in the world, everything is happening all together everywhere at once. And meanwhile, we, with our myopic little minds, are working it out step by step. Of course, we are greatly assisted by the rapidity of the computer. But even so, the computer is still looking at things in rows as the magnetic tape goes through and is scanned by the computer. It's still all going along in a single track. And I suppose then our difficulty is that we have lamentably one-track minds and an infinitely many-tracked universe. And we may have to come to the alarming conclusion that the universe is smarter than we are.
When you study the records of these self-discoveries, the fascinating thing is that there seems to be such a common measure of agreement between all those who find out for themselves. And yet always the way in which he has to find out is not through seeking agreement with others, not trying to find what others have found, but only to find what his own senses and his own direct experience tell him when he, as it were, goes into his inner closet, goes into his own secret place, and asks for a direct encounter with the world, and no longer, as it were, looks out of the corner of his eyes to see if everybody else is doing the same thing, getting the same results. It is in this sense that a person becomes, in the truest sense of the word, a self, an original, authoritative source of life, as distinct from the person in its original sense, a mask, a role that he is playing in a society.